Hello. So kule video sizokwenza enye i-discussion yama-functions, right? So sizobheka i-past paper 2016 for grade 10, right? So lapha mwami ngino question 5, and then bathi the graphs of f and g are sketched below. A and b are the x-intercepts of f, c and d are the y-intercepts of f and g respectively. K is a point on G such that BK is parallel to the x-axis. F and G intersected A and E, right? And then question 1, but write down the coordinates of C. We can see what C is the y-intercept of F, right? So to calculate the coordinates of C, we're just gonna let x be 0 in our function of F, and then we will get the coordinates of C, right? So let us go ahead and do that. So sin of 5.1, right? So if we have f of x equals to x squared minus 4 and we let x be 0, we're gonna get that y, or f of 0 will be 0 squared minus 4, which is gonna be minus 4. Therefore the coordinates of C will be 0, minus 4, right? 5.2, but write down the coordinates of D. Siyabona ukuthi D is the y-intercept of G, right? Same thing, we have g of x to be minus x plus 2. If we let x be 0, with g, we're gonna have g of 0 is equals to minus 0 plus 2 is just 2, right? So therefore the coordinates of D is 0, 2. Okay, and then 5.3, but write down determine the length of CD, right? So to calculate the length of CD, you're gonna take the y coordinate of D and subtract the y coordinate of C, right? The y coordinate of D is 2, and then we subtract the y coordinate of C, which is minus 4. So sizobano 2 minus 4, which is 2 plus 4, which is 6. Therefore CD is equals to 6 units, right? And then 5.4, but to calculate the coordinates of D. So to calculate the coordinates of B, right? We see what B is the x-intercept of the graph of F, right? So we have to let f of x or y be 0. We have to let f of x be 0 to calculate the coordinates of B, right? Meaning we have to let x squared minus 4 to be equals to 0, and then from there we just solve for x, right? If we factorize this, we'll have x plus 2 times x minus 2 to be 0, right? And therefore we'll have x to be minus 2 or x to be 2, right? So now the coordinates of B will therefore be the negative x value, right? Minus 2, 0. Okay, and then masiyago 5.5, but it determine the coordinates of E, the point of intersection of F and G, right? Okay, so ngizokusula la phezulu just to create space. Okay, let me first write down the answers, right? So what is C? The coordinates of C is 0, minus 4. The coordinates of D is 0, 2. The length of CD is 6 units, and then the coordinates of B is minus 2, 0, right? So ngizokusula la to create space. Okay, so 5.5, we have to determine the coordinates of E, the point of intersection of F and G, right? So if we want to determine the point of intersection, we know what at a point of intersection the two graphs will be equal. So we'll have f of x to be equals to g of x at a point of intersection, right? Meaning we'll have x squared minus 4 to be equals to minus x plus 2. And then from here we just solve for x, right? We'll have x squared. If I take this x to the other side, it will become plus x, and then I'll have minus 4. And then if I take this 2 to the other side, it will become minus 2, and then I'll have 0 on the right hand side, right? So this will become x squared plus x minus 6 equals to 0. And then from here we just factorize. I'll have x minus x minus 2 times x plus 3 equals to 0, right? X will be 2 or x will be minus 3, right? So now we're interested in the coordinates of E, right? And then we see what E is on the left hand side of the y-axis, meaning x is negative at E. So x minus 3 is the x coordinate at E, right? So now to calculate the y value, the corresponding y value, we'll substitute this minus 3 on the graph of G, or you can also substitute it on the graph of F. It doesn't matter, because at this point the two graphs are equal. So I will just choose the graph of G. So I'll have minus 3 plus 2, and I will get that y at E is 5. So the coordinates of E will be minus 3, 5. Okay, and then siyadlula lapho siya ku 5.6.1. but for which values of x will the graph of f be less than the graph of G? The graph of f is this parabola, and the graph of G is that straight line. Where is the graph of f lying below the parabola? Sorry, where is the parabola lying below the straight line? I see in this region here, that is where the parabola is below the straight line. So therefore, from this point E to that point A, the graph of f lies below the graph of G. So I know at E, x is x will be minus 3, and then at A, x will be 2, right? Remember, we got the value of x at B to be minus 2, and then at A it will be 2, because our y-axis will be the axis of symmetry, right? And then x, so when we come back to 5.6.1, the graph of f will lie below the graph of G for x greater than minus 3, but then x less than 2. Okay, and then 5.6.2, for which values of x will the product of f and g be greater or equals to 0, right? So at 2, the two graphs are 0, right? At x equals to 2, f of x is equals to 0, right? And g of x is also equals to 0 there. Right? So at x equals to 2, the two graphs are 0, right? And then if you say 0 times 0, you will get 0. So x equals to 2 is one of our x values, which will satisfy this condition. And then we need to look for the parts where it's greater than 0, right? We know what here, when we multiply this, so to look for the parts where we multiply the values of the two graphs to get a positive value, we'll need to look for the parts where both the graphs are positive or where both the graphs are negative, right? So from this point going that way, from this point B going that way, we see the parabola is positive, and the straight line is also positive, right? The straight line is also positive from this point B going that way, right? And then from this point B going to the right, we see ukuthi the parabola is negative, but then the straight line is positive, and we know ukuthi positive times negative will be less than 0, right? But then Tina, we're only interested in greater than 0. So our x values of interest will be the values from B going on to negative infinity, meaning our other x values will be x less than or equals to minus 2. Okay, so x equals to 2 and x less than or equals to minus 2 will give us the solutions that we need, right? Okay. And then say 5.7, but he calculate the length of AK. So AK is that length there, right? Notice ukuthi this right here is a right angled triangle, right? So this from here to there and from there to there will form a right angled triangle, right? So here we have a right angled triangle, and then in that right angled triangle the side AK is the hypotenuse, meaning we can use the theorem of Pythagoras to calculate the length of AK. So we know ukuthi BA, or the length BA, can be calculated by saying the x coordinate at A, which is 2, minus the x coordinate at B, which is minus 2, will give us the length of BA. So here I'll have 2 plus 2, which is 4 units, right? And then what is next is to calculate the length of BK, right? So to calculate the length of BK, we know ukuthi at B the y value there is 0, and at K we don't know the y value, so we first need to calculate the y value at K. So at K the y value there will be, if we substitute minus 2 in the graph of G, we'll get minus 2 plus 2 will get 4. So the length of BK is also 4 units, right? And then using the theorem of Pythagoras, AK will be equals to the square root of 4 squared plus 4 squared, which is 4 root 2 units. It's 4 root 2 units. And then we are done with question 5. Moving on to question 6. So if we go to question 6, okay, let us create space for question 6 here. Right, so question 6 Vatini, but the graph of G is sketched below. A and B are the y and x intercepts of G. And then question 1, but write down the range of G. So this line here is the asymptote, this dotted line. The line y equals to 8 is the asymptote of the graph of G, meaning the graph of G can never cross above this line, right? So the graph of G exists for all values below. The graph of G exists for all values below this asymptote, right? So the range of G will be all the y values less than the asymptote, right? So 6.1 will say the range is less than 8. It's y less than 8, because at 8 we have the asymptote and the graph cannot cross the asymptote, and above 8 we cannot have y values there because our graph cannot cross above the asymptote. Okay, I hope that makes sense. And then 6.2, let me write 6.2 there. 6.2, they want us to determine the coordinates of P. Right, so to determine the coordinates of P, we notice what P is the x-intercept of the graph of G. Right, so meaning we have to let y be 0. Right, meaning g of x needs to be 0 in order for us to calculate the coordinates of P. So this means minus 2x plus 8 needs to be 0. And then now we just solve for x. We will have minus 2 to the power x is equals to minus 8. And then multiplying or dividing by a negative both sides, we'll have 2 to the power x is equals to 8. And then now we have to sort of make the bases to be the same such that we can equate the exponents, right? So 8 is the same as saying 2 to the power 3. We'll see what this is 8. So if I rewrite the right hand side as 2 to the power 3, is the same as saying this is 8, right? Now that the bases are the same, I can equate the exponents, meaning the coordinates of P will be 3 and 0. Okay, and then 6.3 Batini. But if G is reflected over the x-axis to form a new graph H, determine the equation of H. So reflecting a graph about the x-axis means we just multiply the y values by a negative. So the ones that are above the x-axis will go below, and the ones that are below will go above, right? So h of x will be equals to minus g of x, and then minus g of x will be minus, so the equation of g of x will go into here, plus 8, and then we'll have the graph of h of x to be 2x minus 8, right? So if you want to reflect the graph above, or if you want to reflect the graph about the x-axis, you will just need to say minus g of x, and if you need to reflect it about the y-axis, you just have to say g of minus x. Okay, and then 6.4, but explain why the x-intercepts of G and H are both at B. So the x-intercepts will be at B because when you are reflecting a graph above the x-axis, the values that are above the x-axis will go below, and the values that are below will go above. But then the values which are at the x-axis will just stay there, because the x-axis will sort of be our axis of symmetry, if maybe we can call it that. So yeah, the graph of H will sort of look like this, and then it will also have the x-intercept at B. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So yeah, I'll just end this video here. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me there on WhatsApp.